careers are changing pretty fast, accelerated by things like AI. And if we are not investing in our learning, then we will start to get kind of left behind in the world of work. And that is the reality for everybody.
Helen Tupper is a careers expert, author of Squiggly Careers and host of the podcast of the same name. As CEO of Amazing If, she works with companies like the BBC, Visa and Microsoft to make their employees' careers work better for them.
Between the ages of 45 and 50, people who do a career change at that point in time are healthier and wealthier for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I wish I could go back and be even messier, even squigglier. Get proper squiffy.
It's never too late to squiggle.
No, that's it. I love the word squiggle. It's great.
It's great, isn't it?
So I just apologise for William in the background. We've only got an hour today. Yes, you, Will. I am in the background, and he's making us coffees. So you'll probably hear his kettle screech as well. He's got the most inefficient kettle in the world. It takes 20 minutes to boil and screams at you.
It's a war kettle.
I know, yeah. But anyway, what I would like to speak today about is how people can identify the best route to go in their careers and think about progression in probably a way that's not typical, and then how they can kind of go about that. I've consumed loads of your content in the last few weeks, and it's really fascinating how you think about things, and it kind of challenges maybe how most people, including myself, think about things and how we measure success. Can we just start, please, first of all, by framing how you think people face a challenge now going forwards in terms of their skills and maintaining relevancy?
Yeah. So for lots of people, the skills that they currently have won't be as relevant in the next 5 years' time. Like, it's actually not a long period of time. And that is shorter for people that work in STEM careers. So if you work in tech, for example, that's an even shorter period. Like, in 2 years' time, half the value of the skills that you have today will not be relevant to your role. So what this creates is a constant requirement for people to invest in, upgrade and update their skills. And that's very different to the sort of ladder-like careers that we were presented with, where you picked a profession and you showed up, work hard and went up a ladder. Today, the only way you stay relevant in your role is if you keep investing in your skills. And so when people are thinking about their development, how do I learn is really the first question before how do I get to the level that I want to. And I think that's a complete flip from how people used to think about their careers.
Yeah, I think there was a TED talk that you guys did. You and when I say you guys, you've got like a co-author or a business partner.
Yeah, I spend more time with her than my actual partner. So all things.
And the stat that she said was that in 3 years, 50% of skills will be irrelevant by 2025. This was.
Yeah.
I think it was the WEF, World Economic Forum, that put that out. Do you think that came true, that stat, or do you think?
I think it's one of those things that's actually it's hard to measure on an individual by individual basis. It's really hard to say, 30% of your skills are no longer relevant, but 60%. I don't think we do that. I think
gotta have skills first of all.
I wasn't going to say it.
Mate, I'll sell you anything, mate. I'll sell you a new hairline, damn cheap.
So we won't get into that debate, but what we should debate is development as a whole. So regardless of what role you do, where you work, the reality is that careers are changing pretty fast, accelerated by things like AI. And if we are not investing in our learning, then we will start to get kind of left behind in the world of work. And that is the reality for everybody, whether it's 30% of your skills or 60% of your skills. We need to keep learning, or we won't have the opportunities. We'll become quite vulnerable to the change.
Yeah, I think most people listening to a personal finance podcast at this time of year will have an eye on progression. And the typical way of thinking about progression is more money, right? Do you not think that that's the right way to think about it then?
I think that with progression, the assumption, because of ladder-like careers, the assumption we get kind of given about what good development looks like is that we should climb a ladder, we should get promoted, and promotion equals more pay. The problem with that is there aren't enough promotions to go around. So if we just join up, promotion equals pay, and promotions aren't possible, then people can't get to those needs that they might have for financial needs, development needs, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing to do, I think, even before we get to pay, is to broaden out progression. So not just focus on promotion, but broaden out progression. So progression could look like a sideways move into another part of the organisation. It could look like taking on more responsibility in a role. It could look like job crafting. There's a whole range of things that people have more influence over when we think about progression rather than just promotion. And I think the thing that people don't realise is that progression can also come with pay. So sometimes you can increase your pay in a role at the same grade, at the same level. You don't always need to get to the next step, and helping people to be confident about their career conversations, to position themselves for progression can unlock sometimes more opportunities for more pay than just only, really getting narrowly focused on a promotion. So I still think pay is really important. I think it is a motivator for lots of people. I think there are motivations behind money that are worth exploring, but we're not taking pay off the table when we talk about squiggly careers. We're just saying think progression first and don't assume that promotions are the only way to get more money.
Yeah, the issue with promotions, it's the same in the YouTube game, which I operate in. To quote one of the greatest bands of all time, the winner takes it all. And that winner might only be 1% better than everyone else. So in my game, I have competitors, and we made videos around a certain topic. One video will get all the views because YouTube will just go, oh, that's the best video in terms of click-through rate and watch time. So promote that to everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas all the videos are relevant and good. And if you don't win the promotion, you essentially just get left behind. And it's not that the person who's promoted is 10 times better than everyone. They might just be like 1% better, or they might have a better relationship with the manager, and then they move up and their life outcomes are well better.
I think with promotions, there's just a lot of politics. There's a lot of internal process. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of things that aren't necessarily in your control. And so with Squiggly Careers, what we're trying to do is increase people's control, give people more choice so they're less dependent on one particular position, and give people more control over the outcome. And if we only focus on promotion, then we're not doing people a good deed with their development.
You mentioned Squiggly Careers twice,
yes.
And we both know what that is, but I don't think the audience know what Squiggly Careers are. So if you could explain to them what a Squiggly Career is.
Okay, so Squiggly Career, opposite of a career that looks like a ladder. So ladder-like career, step by step, job title driven by the next job title, climbing a ladder. That's the ladder-like career. Squiggly Career is where we say, actually, let's give people more opportunities to develop in different directions. Let's help people to have careers as individual as they are. Let's remove the judgment of what a good job looks like, and actually let's focus on what success means to a single person and start there. And the premise that we work with is that people will have more freedom, flexibility and fulfillment with a squiggly career, rather than feeling like they're forced to follow in someone's footsteps with the ladder-like career. I am not undermining the importance of money at all, and I've definitely looked at career moves through that lens in the past, but what I think we have to do is balance that out with what is your motivation beyond it. So even if you want money, for a lot of people, more money means more stability, or more money means more sense of achievement, or more money means more security. And I think understanding the motivation behind the money is really important, because sometimes more money isn't possible. There is a pay freeze, there is a restructure, there's whatever's going on, but it doesn't mean there aren't other ways that people can fulfill that motivation. Like I'm really motivated by achievement. If I just attach the fulfillment of that to money and I don't get more money, then I don't feel like I'm achieving. Actually, my need for achievement can be done in lots of different ways. It can be done by writing a book. It can be done by 200 people liking a LinkedIn post. There's ways that I can get that value, that motivation fulfilled that goes beyond just getting more money. And I think I'm not undermining money. I'm just saying it's often not the only way that people get that motivation fulfilled.
In the past, the traditional career was you'd find a job and you'd have that for life.
Yeah.
Versus now people change jobs all the time.
Yeah.
Has there been any research to look at if those individuals who stayed in careers their whole life were more fulfilled? Has anyone asked them, how do you feel about your careers?
I haven't seen it.
Because it's like they didn't have that choice of squiggling. They
Yeah.
were just like, that's you, But we often look back at them almost romantically, the previous generations, of life was simpler. They seem to be happier and more fulfilled. Maybe, a booming property market.
Yeah, that helps. I think the guys in coal mines probably didn't enjoy it. But they're like the doctors and people have like a calling for your life. You're like, I always want to be a doctor. Then you're a doctor for 60, 70 years. You'd probably be like, oh. You might feel quite...
My granddad was a miner. He was always quite happy. And when the mines closed, he then went to go be a guide in the mines. So I think he probably... And then he was a lollipop man. So he was kind of squiggly. He was kind of squiggly in his own way.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's really hard to compare, because I think that world was very different. Like their skill, they didn't have the pressures necessarily that we are under in terms of the pace of change, the kind of the need to learn. They did have more job security. They could sit in a job and be relatively confident that they would have that job in a year or 2 years' time. And I don't think we're operating today in the same context. I think there's a very different pressure on people in work. And I don't think that means that you can't be happy doing what you're doing, but I do think it means that you can't outsource your development to somebody else, which I think is a lot of the time, job for life, work for a stable employer, show up, this company feels like a family and I'm safe and secure. I don't think that is where we are working now. I think we're working in somewhere where if we do not take ownership for our development, we can become quite vulnerable in our career.
Okay. What about people that just hate work?
Yeah.
No, seriously. There's
yeah.
a load of people out there that are like, I just fucking hate what I do. I go there to get the money. And I think this idea that we should all love our job and get fulfillment is, I think 70% of people that might not even apply to.
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily talking about loving your job.
Yeah.
I'm not in the camp of let's all go love our job every day. I run my own company. I work with my best friend and business partner. I do not love my job every day. But I do like it a lot of the time, and I do feel fulfilled by my work. So I think there's a difference there. The first thing we want to work out is what motivates you and not have any judgment about that. So for example, let's say someone is motivated by doing a job, getting the money that they need for their life because what they really care about is music. They know they can't earn a living doing that, but to be honest, that's their passion. That's okay. We would work with those values and say, how do we find a role that aligns with your values? The problem is when we place the same motivations on everybody. So we assume that everybody's motivated by achievement or everybody's motivated by, becoming more senior. The problem is when we present people with one version of success, which the ladder like career does, and then people don't enjoy what they're doing, they feel pressured to perform in a certain way, they feel like they're competing with their colleagues. None of that is good for people. What we're trying to do is take away the judgment and say, why does work matter to you? Let's start there and let's build your career around that. And for some people, that might be like, to be honest, I'm just here to earn money because there's something else I want to do. That's fine. We work with that. For some people, it might be, I'm here because this gives me, it gives me a sense of achievement, which is important to my identity. Also fine. But when we talk to people about career development, the starting point is what we call values, understanding what motivates and drives you. And the idea is that you design your development around that, not this kind of single definition of success.
And at what age would someone be having that conversation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the research around values says that your values are formed, so the things that motivate and drive all of us are formed by the time we're in like a young adult, so early 20s. So I think at that point we should be having conversations with people around, I think actually it's more about giving people experiences. So I don't think you really know what motivates and drives you until you've been given experiences to explore some of that stuff and go, do you know what, I didn't like that didn't work for me. So I've definitely had some of those roles earlier in my career where I was like, that wasn't a good move for me. And then some other moves where I've gone, that's a bit better. So I actually think giving people what we would call a really squiggly start, not trying to fix people too early in their career and giving them chance to work on different projects, move around a business a bit, and then ask them questions about, well, what gave you energy? Where were you most motivated? And try to get those insights. I think that's really valuable. A lot of the time we don't do that. We put people into pressure after university or when they finish school to pick a position, assume that it's the right path for them to take, and then they're kind of, a bit siloed in there in a company. And I think that doesn't help them get the insights which would actually make them happier, more fulfilled, whatever word we're comfortable with, but basically enjoy the time they're going to spend at work.
Grad schemes always did that better, I found. Big blue chips, grad schemes and investment banks would often just move people around 3 months at a time. Whereas if you weren't lucky enough to get onto one of those schemes where they basically got budgets just to say for a year, you're not going to work, you're just going to experience, you have to pick a job and then that's you.
I think organisations, I agree. I did 3 grad schemes, so I was so keen on all this learning. I kind of gathered a lot of that quite quickly. But I think what I see in lots of organisations now is they're moving more to a skills-based strategy, as in, rather than sticking people in a job and then you have to kind of stay there for 2 years before you can move on to the next one, again, very ladder-like, what people are more doing is saying, well, what skills do you want to be known for? What skills do you want to stretch? And what projects could we put you on that would help you to do that? So we're seeing more like lots of organisations doing what they call a talent marketplace, where you can apply for internal projects that might not be part of your job today based on strengths that you want to develop. And I think if that was a broader way that organisations worked, we would kind of create the sort of things that you got from a graduate scheme, but not just for people starting in a company.
Yeah, I wish this was before even work in the education system, because I wish someone said to me, Damien, you're just good at getting A's in the exams at GCSE, but you hate studying, clearly. So if you go to uni, you're going to get shown up. So just don't waste your time, mate, and go sell some shit, because that's what you're good at. Do you know what I mean? Go and get into a career where there's a money motivator, because that's when I came alive. I mean, you're probably the same, right?
I've had the squiggliest of careers.
You are
I'm like that inflatable guy. His arms are like waving in the air. I'm super squiggly. But I think that's because my parents, my mum's a doctor, so she was always like ladder, go medical school, keep climbing. My dad was in like Merrill Lynch, so it's like ladder, climb. But for me, my dad's like, I see you as, because he left Merrill Lynch and ran his own business and things. So he's like, I see you a bit like me, more of an entrepreneur. I don't see you just working one career for your whole life. So I'm sure you're going to hop around. Whereas your sister, who's in like security and counterterrorism, she's just like fully focused on like that. So I think it depends on who you are, but I do think the system's a bit broken, because when you're in school, they're like, what do you want to do for A-levels? What career do you want to do? And then you get to uni and they're like, what career do you want to do? Then you get to the job, they're like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm like, I haven't even got the job yet. What do you mean in 5 years? I don't even know if you guys are going to give me this job. So do you think that companies are changing the way they think, or do you still think they're like, okay, where are they going to be in 5 years? Do they want to be a director?
One group of people that don't really seem to get much help with their finances are small business owners. They're not really big enough to have a CFO or a finance director, so they often outsource work to do with their finances, like accounting. This can result in a few things, but one of them is they don't get good, actionable advice on what to do with the excess money inside of their business. And what normally happens is they just leave that cash sat in a business bank account, getting no interest. This is why we're happy that we're partnering with Tide. They offer an instant access saver account where new customers can get 4.07% AER variable on unlimited deposits until June 1st, 2025. If you'd like to put the excess capital in your business bank account to good use, head to the link in the description. You'll also find there the full offers, T's and C's and Tide's terms. The variable rate is correct as of the 19th of December, 2024.
I think a lot of the organisations we work with are changing their thinking. Else they wouldn't work with us on Squiggly Careers. But where I see a gap at the moment is for students, like we've mentioned. I definitely see a gap there. I think there's a lot of work we can do around Squiggly for students. How do we help them think about it? How do we create environments that are easier for them to kind of move around? We kind of sort of try before they apply kind of thing is what we really want. But then the other opportunities at sort of the other end really of the career scale is people who are, from an age perspective, they're sort of approaching thinking around retirement, or that's what they're being told to do, but they actually want to keep working. They are not ready to stop working, but what they see is a kind of work and a workforce that isn't really encouraging them to stay. And I think that those two areas, how do we create work that lasts longer for the people that want to do it, who have an immense bank of skills, but they're not necessarily working in organisations that know how to support later life careers, and how do we help people earlier on? That's where I think we've got quite a lot of opportunity to influence in our work.
Yeah. If I could go back to my 20s, I'd say to myself, try loads of things and quit loads of things and be quick on quitting. If you don't like it, get out. No one cares. Because I think this whole thing of like, no, you've got to stick at it, force through it. You know, no one likes a quitter. I think that's really bad advice in your early 20s.
That's from the old generation. I've done that. I've stayed in jobs too long. I've done a lot of jobs, but I've definitely stayed in some. I'm like, I should just quit 6 months or a year sooner instead of being loyal to the company where I was never going to be long term.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then what about people who maybe are 40s, 50s who want to get a little bit squiggly and they just kind of haven't. And now they think, oh, it's too late for me.
Yeah.
Or it's going to have this monumental crash in earnings.
Well,
and I've got a life that like I need to support.
We were speaking at the OECD earlier in the year. They'd just done some research about later life careers. And what they'd shown is that between the ages of 45 and 50, people who do a career change at that point in time are healthier and wealthier for the rest of their life. So actually, you know, that the assumption is, oh gosh, this is going to be a dramatic decrease in my income. Actually, over the long term, the people that make a change at that point actually kind of do better on multiple levels. The problem is confidence to change careers at that point, because they might be thinking, can I do this? Maybe they've stayed in the organisation. Maybe they had a quite ladder-like career, and then suddenly doing a squiggle feels quite daunting for them to change professions or do a bit of a career pivot. So I think, again, how we support those people to think about their talents before their titles, to maybe build a career community outside of their company. Like, there's very practical things that you can do to help people, but I don't think we're providing people with that level of support that could help them to extend their career. And economically, we need to. We've got an aging population. We do need people to be working and earning for longer.
There's like a sunk cost fallacy as well that comes with, like, you know, I worked in finance for 10 years and then I quit it all to make videos, and it was kind of like, I'm throwing all that away, this career. And I was in sales at a point where I was quite senior, where it was basically like a part-time job where you was getting paid 6 figures because all you were doing was answering the phone when something went wrong. You know, you're an account manager.
Yeah.
The irony of sales is if you become really good at it, you stop selling and they give you the most valuable accounts that you don't need to sell to. But it just felt like I was throwing it all away. And obviously it was a good decision to do that. But I really empathize with people that have something that's quite good financially, but then want to pursue a passion or a different interest, and how hard that jump is.
Well, I mean, I personally had the same experience. So I used to be commercial marketing director at Microsoft. What is now my company had been a side project for 6 years. And I was at this real pivotal point of, do I stay and progress my career within Microsoft, which is all going quite well, or do I take quite a big risk and try and scale my side project? Now, the answer to that is obvious because I'm here talking about Squiggly Careers. But at the time, it was a really difficult decision because your identity is often quite tied to your role. What happens if you fail? All of those. I had the same confidence gremlins as lots of people would have at that point. And I think the difference is I'd invested in some of the skills that support people to make that move. So I had a strong community around my career. I knew what my talents were. Financially, I built myself a little bit of a runway so I could halve my salary, and I had a little bit of a runway. I knew if I could turn it in 9 months, then I could stay doing that. And if I didn't turn it in 9 months, I would go back to what I'd done before because of the relationships that I built around my role.
People always say you can always go back, but no one takes that on board. But you can just go back.
Yeah, if you don't burn
just go back.
Yeah.
And actually, you're more employable in a way because you're like, well, I developed these skills. You know, I now have this ability to make content that is pretty valuable, you know.
And there's more and more people go back, the boomerang employees. There's more and more people now that are going back to organisations that they've been in before. And again, that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to say a good career has to look like this. If you discover that you liked where you worked and you developed some skills elsewhere and you go back to it, I think that could be a good move for a lot of people.
You might be able to get a little uplift in your salary as well when you go back because you've got new skills or new experience or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my pride would never have let me go back. I'd never really considered
never would have gone back.
I burn the bridges as I go. Yeah, like
you said
I'd stab the tyres of the bosses on the way out.
We should talk about keeping options open.
put a brick through their car.
No, I like to burn the boats.
Okay.
Not burn the bridges. I like to burn the boats.
Burn the boats
Okay.
and the bridges.
I need my back against the wall. You know, I need to think like this is all I've got because otherwise I become complacent. I worked in sales because, you know, if you just say you're going to earn X amount whether you show up or not, well, I'm not showing up. You know, it's got to be like, you know, you only eat if you sell. Like that's what motivates me. You know,
I'm so like almost thinking, oh, I'd love to coach you right now. I don't know what I'm thinking. It's probably a distraction. Well, no, what I'm thinking is clearly you're motivated. We have to get into it. So you're motivated by what? Growth, achievement. What I'm wondering is this, you know, the burn the boat thing. Why do you have to ruin relationships in order to get the growth?
No, I don't ruin the relationships. But as an example, every year I save money inside my limited company, and then on the first day of the financial year, all that money's gone. So it's invested, spent back in the business. Yeah. And I was no safety blanket.
Yeah. So you don't want that comfort.
No, because otherwise I'll just chill. So then it goes again, you know. And I don't burn the relationships. I mean, you inherently don't speak to people again. Like, you know, you don't really, but
which is interesting, and then not speaking to people again, because actually some of your kind of past connections could be doors to new opportunities. Constantly investing in building new relationships takes a lot of energy. So finding ways to reconnect with people that you've got some kind of relationship with in the past. So people you work with in different organisations or people you run businesses with, actually they're quite fertile ground for opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And you get work out of those.
I got jobs from my old people I used to work with. But you said that exploring, in the TED Talk, you said exploring career possibilities gives you more resilience. So like if you're like me or Damien, you started looking at different careers early.
Yeah.
But like you just said, if you're in your 40s or 50s, it's a lot harder. I found when I was changing careers, like I thought, it'll be easy, I'll just get a new job. And then like it took me 6 months or like a year to get a new job. So I was still working unhappily in my old job. you gave some practical steps, but what do you think is like the best thing to focus on if you're trying to go for a squiggly career? You're like, okay, I've been doing this ladder. I want to step off the ladder into the squiggle, as you guys say.
Yeah.
How do I step into the squiggle?
I think so there's a few things that are important. So the first one is talents. You've got to work out what you want to be known for. And you need to make sure those talents do the talking for you. So if I think about some of my skills, so I am good at growing businesses, building teams, making things happen. They're like 3 of my talents. And I've used those in multiple different companies. If I'm going to do a new role, or if I want to increase my possibilities, I need those talents to stand out because they will pull possibilities towards me. If people don't know me and what I'm good at, I'm constantly knocking on doors and going, hi, I'm Helen, I'm good at this, do you want me? And they're like, oh, I don't know. But if my talents do the talking for me, if people are thinking, oh, we've got a project, it's hit a bit of a bump in the road, who do we know who's good at growing things quickly? I want to be the person in their mind. And the more your talents do the talking for you, so the more they're in other people's mind, the more you will create pull for your opportunity. So point 1 is, what do you want to be known for? How do you make those strengths stand out? So projects and conversations, and there's various ways you can make your project stand out. I think the second thing that is really important is to be having lots of curious career conversations. So quite a lot of people with their career find themselves in a position of need. So I've decided I no longer want to do this because I hate my manager, or I've decided I no longer want to do this because I'm bored in my job. I now need a new job. And to your point, it takes a while, right? It takes a while. You've got to find the job, apply for the job, probably not going to get the first ones. People aren't probably going to reply to your applications. It takes a while.
Draining.
It's really draining.
And it makes you a bit sad. You're like, oh, why don't they want to hire me?
Yeah. It's a really hard process. And every time we're in that position of need, not only is it hard, but I feel like it's compounded by the fact that you don't really like where you are as well. You're like, I don't like it here. You don't want me there.
And you've made the mental, you've checked out mentally. It's even worse.
Really hard. And that is not a fun situation. And a lot of people find themselves in it. So curious career conversations mean that you are proactively nurturing your opportunities. So I'm not only talking about a role when I've decided I don't want to do this one, where, to be honest, I think sometimes that energy also comes across. You're like, I want to do something else. And you are having regular curious career conversations where I might say to you, tell me what a day in your life is like. What skills are you using? This is what I enjoy doing. Would this be useful here? If this was something I want to do in the future, what do you think I should be developing myself in now? The more you have those conversations, the more you'll be able to see, I like that, I don't like that. The more proactively you can invest in your skills, and the more people who will know you and they will see you as a curious person who is willing to learn. And that is what we need to be investing in now, curious people who are willing to learn.
I worked in organisations where if you had your CV out online, they would basically discipline you without disciplining you. So like you couldn't be actively looking for jobs. And then I worked at another place where my manager was like, you should have your CV out, because he was like looking after me. He was just like, see what's in the market, see what comes, because it's going to help you negotiate. And, he would always be saying to his boss, well, I'm here. So, that's your answer. I'm here right now. But if I want to have a pulse on the market almost.
Yeah.
So it's hard for people to kind of know outside of their organisation what is good, what is bad, and what's there, because I think a lot of organisations really suppress your ability to do that, if that makes sense.
One of my favourite exercises to do is this exercise called career scanning. And I really encourage managers to do this with their teams. So the way that you do career scanning is you go on any jobs website. So I tend to use LinkedIn Jobs. I find that just the easiest one that works for me. So you go on the website and you search for jobs that are kind of interesting to you. Now, these do not have to be jobs that you can do, so you don't worry about what qualifications they need or where they're based or how much money they are. You don't worry about that. You just pick out jobs that are kind of appealing to you on whatever basis that is. And then you go through the job description and you just highlight what is it in that job description that you find appealing. So I was talking to someone about this today, actually. So I remember there was a job of like brand innovation director, I think it was at Amazon, that I was looking at this morning. And I'm just going through it and I'm highlighting, rapid growth, that sounds really appealing, leading innovation team, just highlighting the statements. You want to do that for about 5 jobs, because when you've done it for 5 jobs, what you can see is some consistencies over the stuff that you are quite interested in. And then that insight can inform your progression priorities. So if you're my manager and you're like, Helen, what do you want to do in the future? And I don't know, because I don't know exactly what job I want to do, and that's okay. what I could say to you is, actually, there are a few possibilities I'm interested in exploring. What's common across all of them is they've got like rapid growth, really enjoy working in innovation, have the opportunity to lead a team. I'd love to talk to you about where in the business those projects or positions are. And suddenly we've opened up a conversation, and you as a manager, you now have the opportunity to keep me, because you can go, okay, I get what Helen's interested in. All right, well, why doesn't she keep this project off over here? And even if the perfect role isn't there, the fact that you have been a manager that has listened to me and made it safe for me to talk about what I want to do, not what my current job title says I should do, is a much better way to engage people. When managers do talent hoarding, which is, you're good, you're my best salesperson, you need to stay here because you make me look good. What the result of that is, you are more likely to leave.
Yeah.
And talent hoarding backfires for businesses.
I've experienced that. The best salespeople don't become sales managers because, we need you to sell.
Yeah.
We'll promote the person who's crap and then they leave. I've also experienced, though, that managers, someone's left and the manager is like, he wanted more money elsewhere, but he never asked us for more money.
Yeah.
And we would have paid him more, he's already quit by the time, it comes around to that.
Yeah.
But I think that's because sometimes you feel like, especially if you're in sales, you're like, you can see how much numbers you're putting on the board, you know how well you perform and like what it does to the company, and you're like, why have you guys not offered me a bonus? Why do you not appreciate me? But again, you have to ask for it. But sometimes when you feel like you're that valuable to the company, they should just be like, this guy's really important, we need to look after them. But I feel like most companies don't. They're just like, if they ask us, we'll deal with it then, but otherwise we'll just keep ticking along.
Yeah, and I think confidence of the work that we do, I think confidence is a thing that I see all the time as a blocker for people in terms of their growth. And I think, I've worked in sales too, and I think you can make assumptions that if you work in sales, that person is 100% confident, and they might be in some aspects, they might be quite confident negotiating or something that's removed from them. Yeah. But when it comes to them and their career and their identity, I think sometimes there's quite a lot of vulnerabilities there. Sales.
It can break you, sales. Like, you feel really unconfident.
Yeah, and people do it because it feels validating, but if they've not got that sense of achievement, they don't feel valuable. Mm-hmm. And so you've got a lot of that psychology going on that affects people's confidence in, I can ask for more from that customer, but can I ask for more for my career? It's I think making assumptions about people who look confident are confident, I think is a bit of a problem. I think we see that we call them confidence gremlins, so these beliefs that hold them back. And there are very few people who don't have some beliefs that hold them back in their career.
Cybersecurity is becoming a growing concern for businesses in the UK. Hacking, phishing, duping. Look, I get it. I see people spoofing my account and likeness all of the time online to scam people. So if you want to get your business cyber secure and prove that you're secure, then you need to check out our partner, Vanta. Whether you're a startup growing fast or you're already established, Vanta can help you get certified with stuff like GDPR and ISO 27001 without all of the headaches. Vanta massively reduces the time and effort you need to spend on cybersecurity. For example, the questionnaires that you have to fill out to prove you're compliant with these standards. With Vanta, you can get them done up to 5 times faster. The beauty is Vanta allows you to stop stressing over cybersecurity, taking up headspace so you can focus on what you do best, which is growing your business. You can get $1,000 off today by going to vanta.com/makingmoney. There's a link in the description for you.
You say get the talent to do the talking. Yeah. How do you do that?
So talents these are the things that you want to be known for. These are the things that give you energy at work. And the more that we use our talents, the more impactful we are in our roles. So that's what we mean by talents. One of the most useful things to do, so your talents do talking for you, is to start to think about how you can stretch your strengths beyond where you are today. So for a lot of people, they either don't know what they want to be known for. Honestly, lots of people cannot answer that question. And that's quite risky for the development. So you've got to know what you want to be known for. And then we need to make sure that it's used more. Basically, that's the real trick here. So the first stretch is in the job that you already do is the easiest place to start to stretch your strength. So in meetings and conversations, whatever this thing you want to be known for, how could I just make it show up a little bit more, be a bit more intentional? So for example, I used to kind of be a manager in marketing. I decided that the thing that I most wanted to be known for was career development. So the easiest stretch for me was as a manager, I just started to use a few more tools with my team. It was the easiest thing. They didn't really realize I was doing it. I just got a bit better at what I was already doing. Second stretch is in the department that you're in. So is there a project that you could put your hand up for? Could you buddy up with somebody in the department but outside of your day job? That is a bit of a stretch, but it still feels quite safe because it's quite familiar. You know the context, you know the people. Third stretch is in the organisation more broadly? Is there a moment in time, an event, a project, a cross-functional group like an employee resource group that you could get involved in that might benefit from what you want to be known for? And then the fourth stretch is outside the company. So could you mentor someone? Could you volunteer? I used to work for a charity, for example. But the point is, in all these opportunities, you are using that strength you want to be known for. And what happens is it gets bigger because you're more experienced, and it gets better. And when that happens, people see you using that strength, they associate you with it, and it pulls opportunities towards you. So that's the way, really, we want to take our talents and make them do the talking for us.
So if you're sat there now and you're thinking, my job is one that I think might become irrelevant, or this space that I'm in is not going anywhere, that, first of all, how do people identify that's the case? And then how do they go, this is where I should move to?
Yeah. So how do I identify that my role is going to become irrelevant? I mean, I do not have a crystal ball. What I can kind of cite is lots of the research that's done around this. So you mentioned the World Economic Forum. So their report, 2023, which is kind of later than the one that we talked about in our TED talk, I think they've said something like 87 million jobs will be displaced by AI, but I think 95 million will be created. So I think the likelihood is that most of our roles are going to change in some way, some perhaps more significantly than others. So manufacturing, for example, lots of stuff in retail, AI is having a very significant...
Data entry and typists
Yeah,
and things
I think
like this.
There are some potentially obvious ones, but I honestly think the safer assumption is to think my role is likely to be disrupted by AI in the next couple of years. I think that is a safer way for people to think. And so I think thinking about, well, what skills are going to support me to create my career in the future, and proactively investing in those. Now that depends very much on what you want to do. If someone wants to stay in data, there are different skills that I would suggest that they start investing in versus someone who wants to stay in marketing. I think the point is you're scanning further forward. If people just look at the bubble of where their job is today, they won't be able to see the skills they need to invest in. So I think you need to look beyond, be proactive with your career, but build the relationships. That's the thing that will help people get to where they want to go.
I asked ChatGPT for some jobs that had been displaced in the past, and there was like some crazy ones. Have you ever heard of a knocker-upper? It sounds pretty
You're
nice.
setting me up. No.
So, I mean, it's not what you think. They were displaced by the alarm clock, and their job was to knock on people's windows to wake them up before alarm clocks existed.
Oh.
Yeah, the knocker-upper. And there's like images of them, and they have like a stick with a thing on that was like wrapped, and they bang on the windows to wake them up. Yeah.
I wonder if they love their jobs.
Who woke up the knocker-upper though? Do you know what I mean? How did they get them? There's like lift operators, bowling pin stackers. So one of the first examples.
Stack up every little.
Yeah. There's just a guy back there, just like putting them up.
Comes out of the tunnel and he just like puts them up.
But that's automation, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not new. I think we talk about it, and it's scary, and it will transform the way people do their jobs, but technology impacting people's work and what jobs exist and what new ones are created, that is not new. No. The thing we need to do is make sure that we are resilient, and so that we don't make our development dependent on what we do today or one company or even one person. A lot of people will make their development dependent on their manager. So you're my manager and I expect you to tell me what to do, what to learn, what my next opportunity is. And every time we introduce that dependency, we bring in risk. So we're just trying to help people have more choice.
I think you can get caught unaware though, because with the AI, what came out was within the first early iterations, it was coding. And I think instantly all these people that have been told their whole lives, if you learn how to code, you'll have a job for life. We're like, oh crap. This thing here is coding at an okay level.
Yeah.
What's it going to be like in 10 years? And that means then that's a skill that we've been force fed to set you up for life that's now actually might be displaced by technology. It's like we don't see it coming.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm worried because I think like sales skills are like, I'll be fine at sales skills. But then like
people, mate. People buy from people.
People skills as well. But then what if they make the like Elon Musk little Tesla robots? What if they make them more and more lifelike and they become more so that if you call up someone for a service, you don't know if it's a human or if it's an AI because they're so good at selling and they're so like lifelike. So
you might go back to face then. Yeah. Another one was door-to-door salesmen before adverts. So they were walking adverts, and this is what I learned. They were displaced by TV ads because you could sell to many.
Yeah.
But like the knocking on doors was like the original
like, this
advert.
Is a vacuum
Here's an encyclopedia or a Bible. Yeah.
I think design skills as well. You've got people people that have heavily invested in design skills, and then you've got things like
Computers just designing.
Midjourney and DALL-E that can quite quickly, and that's where it is today. I mean, we don't quite know how many things are going to come from AI and how it's going to affect careers. But what we do know is that if we don't keep investing ourselves and we don't keep exploring, we don't keep trying to evolve our roles before we kind of are the choice is taken away from us, that's going to be problematic. So I think that's the thing. We want to create learners. There's difference between know-it-all, when knowledge is actually going out of date quite quickly, and learn-it-alls, where people are constantly thinking about, well, how could I learn? Who could I help? Who could help me? That's the sort of thinking we're trying to create for people in their career.
How can people learn then? That's a good question, because what does it mean to learn?
Yeah, so it's actually the subject of our next book, which I'm not really allowed to talk about. I'm not really. We're just literally today. It's handed over to Penguin. The thing, I guess, the idea for the book is this whole kind of thing that I've been talking about the importance of learning, but also the recognition that most people find it hard to do. So I'm here saying, the thing that's going to help you to stay relevant, the thing that's going to help you to have opportunities is if you learn. And someone's thinking, well, that's great, but I spend all day on calls and emails. Like, how am I supposed to find time to learn? So what we are trying to do is help people add learning into their day rather than it being something that always has to be added on. Like I have to go on a course, or I have to find a free Friday, which never happens. You never have the free Friday. So what we're trying to do is help people to learn through things like experiments in meetings and conversations that you are already in, and how people can use data that they've already got around their job to then make sort of tweaks and changes that can improve their development. The quality of the questions we ask. Questions are an amazing way that we learn from other people, but very often people have quite a limited question range. They always ask the same kinds of questions. And so there are small things that we can do that help people to learn a lot more at work. And given that that's where we spend most of our time, that's where we have the biggest opportunity to grow. So that's what we're trying to do. Small, everyday things you can add into what you're already doing.
I mean, I just want to hammer this point about the learning stuff, because not everyone works for an employer that will support their learning. And, they want to learn whilst on the job rather than going, okay, I've got to go home and I've got to study for 2 hours.
Yeah.
How are they doing that when they might have an employer that is not supportive and their ambition is to leave that employer?
Yeah. So one of the things, again, you've got to go back to, let's take away some of the assumptions about what learning looks like. So learning has to go on a course. Let's take away that assumption. It doesn't have to do that. Learning can be something you do every day. Learning has to be something that my manager endorses. So they have to say, here's your thing. No, you don't have to. No one needs to give you permission to learn. You can choose to learn. Learning has to come with a qualification. Some of it might do, but definitely not all of it. In fact, most learning doesn't come with a qualification. What it does require is a bit of commitment. But going back to, this is your career, not your manager's career, what we are trying to do is help people to take ownership. Now, that to one side, so we're taking ownership, we're creating opportunities, and we're not making our development dependent. That aside, someone doesn't have a lot of time. Someone doesn't have a lot of time to learn. One of the things that we've seen most effective for learning is the concept of a sprint. So, and we've been trialing this with our community. We've had over 8,000 people sprinting with us this summer. So this is the idea of small bits of daily learning. So you take a skill like, I don't know, you'd know this more than me, some kind of YouTube thing that you want to get better at. And every day you are designing like a 15-minute window into your day where you're going to learn about that thing. So maybe you do a bit of an experiment, get some feedback. Maybe you try a quick tool. Maybe you look at somebody who you might consider, I don't know, a competitor who's doing it a bit better so you can learn from them. But what we want to do is over, say, a week, you accumulate your learning in small, accessible ways. So we run month-long sprints. We do it with companies, we do it with our community, where every day it's a very small amount of learning. I've done one with a client today, for example. It's a month-long sprint. They have half an hour once a week for a month. But this idea of taking quite a big skill, becoming proficient at some YouTube tech, and breaking it down into small segments, and then almost creating like a learning streak. So you're borrowing from stuff like Duolingo or Peloton or Strava, that idea of not wanting to lose the streak, but we are creating a learning streak. And it works even better if you do it with someone else. So when you build in the accountability of a buddy or a community, then it makes it easier to stick to a sprint. But it's that smaller, more frequent learning is easier for people to fit into a day. if I said to you, oh, can you find 5 hours this week, you might say no. Maybe, I mean, an hour a day is quite a lot, but it's that idea of let's not look at the total time and try and fit that in. Let's break it down to something that's more achievable.
15 minutes is achievable as well, and it might even be on your commute or in your lunch break, or how many people work 8 hours a day. There's a couple of hours there, isn't there?
We've seen sprints. In the summer, ours was 7 minutes a day. So we're sort of experimenting with, like I said, I'm doing one at the moment. I did one today that was half an hour with a company. The community one we did was 7 minutes a day for a month. But I wouldn't want to do more than 30 minutes. I think the idea is it's got to be short so that you can fit in. Yeah.
And what is the types of learning that you find are effective and sticky for people?
Well, I guess the learning that we are doing with our sprints is very focused on career development. So, but I think you could easily do it on a technical thing. So, for example, I use Canva a lot for a lot of the things that we create. I don't think I'm that skilled on Canva. I think I'm doing the same things over and over again, but they've released loads of new tech and loads of different things. I could do a Canva skill sprint. It's a platform that I use that I'm probably using in the same way. Over 15 minutes a day for a week, I could say, do you know what, I'm going to try out a new tool on Canva every day so that I can experiment. By the end of that week, I'd be much more proficient in using that platform than I currently am. So most of the things that I do are around career development, communications, leadership, creating trust, developing confidence, those sorts of things. But that's just because that's my work. I think most things you could break into a sprint, so it's much more achievable. But my top tips would be don't do more than half an hour a day, because then I think that time will start competing with other things, and don't do it for longer than a month, because I think you'll lose that energy.
I was about to ask if you were doing something like a degree or diploma or something. You don't think it would be like if you had like a year-long course or like a 3-month course, and you don't think that would be the best? It's something that you can deal with.
It's a specific skill, and I think we see this after a month. People just start to lose a bit of that energy. So again, this is what we're experimenting with. What's the optimum length of a sprint, and what's the optimum amount of time a day for people to sprint? But whilst we're working out the answer to that, I think people can experiment with it themselves.
Yeah, so when I started YouTube, I'd had no video production experience. So it's like all these tasks that are like super alien to me. I'd never picked up a camera, and how do I get better at those over time? And it was just like 1% improvements every time of like, oh, let's learn a little bit about lighting. And then with the editing, you've got a whole suite of software that looks crazy. It's almost like a trading setup. It's all these buttons. You just follow people online, step by step button click of like, this is how to edit this effect. And you do that, and you do it like 10 times. And before you know it, I could watch an edit and pull it apart myself and go, oh, they're using these kind of things. I remember one time sitting there watching Netflix going, I could make this documentary. I can't believe that these guys are on Netflix where all they're doing is sitting, doing a mic and doing this simple edits, And
I think what tends to happen is we have that, when we start something, particularly if it's something we're passionate about, we have that energy to experiment. But then what happens is we become competent, and we don't necessarily go back to being a beginner again.
You get stuck in a rut. You kind of settle on the skill set and don't push yourself.
So this idea of sort of unlearning and relearning is really important. So very often with learning, it's always about the next skill, the new thing. But actually, if most of your time is spent video editing, going back to basics and going, what's actually changed in the last 2 years, sometimes that's often the learning that people don't look for, because they're so attracted to like new shiny skills that they dismiss the value of being a beginner on the things that they are already doing.
Yeah, so I'm like obsessed with continuous improvement within the content space, and I've hired an editor now who's better than me. So I went back to the most valuable task I do is script writing.
Yeah.
So I went back to that and was like, how can I improve that? And I went and found this like storytelling coach from Hollywood, and I pay him for sessions. And
amazing.
Yeah, within the education, because I'm like, who else is going to be paying a guy who writes scripts for Hollywood to try and... I've only done one session, and on the first session we just talked about ancient Greek thoughts on storytelling, pathos, logos, ethos. And, it's just anything that gives me an edge.
Yeah.
Because I know that my competitors won't be able to do that. And it's like, how do I continually lift the bar to the point where people look at me and go, he's so far ahead, there's no point even trying.
But that idea of almost like creating your own curriculum is really powerful. So kind of old school learning was I'd go on a course where someone had designed that for me and everyone would be learning the same thing and it might not actually be that relevant to what you want to do anyway. But this idea of you going, well, if this is what I want to learn, how can I design my own development that's really unique to me, so much more powerful because you will feel more ownership of it because it's your idea, you've kind of gone after those things. It's going to be much more personalized to what you want to know, and therefore much more likely that you will apply that learning. And the one little other thing for you to maybe do is the best way to make your learning last is to teach it to other people.
Others. Yeah. Okay.
So that building that in to your learning loop is a really effective way of you consolidating your knowledge and making it stick.
Yeah, I think for like someone like you look at something you're good at and then go, how can I get amazing at that, elite at it? Something that people always said is you have this storytelling element to your content. Okay, let's actually explore that from a skill set perspective, rather than being like, I'm highly unorganized as an individual. I hired someone to be organized for me. I don't, because I hate this whole thing of you should get better at the things you're bad at.
Yeah.
I think you should get world class at the things you're good at and get rid of everything else.
Agreed.
Nice.
How, if you're someone that doesn't know what you're good at or what skills to build, how do you identify those things?
I think they are two different questions. So I'm someone that doesn't know what I'm good at. How do I work that out? And then I'm someone who doesn't know what skills to build. How do I do that? So let's take them separately. If you don't know what you're good at, we see that quite a lot with people. Sometimes it's because of confidence gremlins. So they're like, oh, I don't know if I should say I'm good at that because you're better at it than that kind of a thing. But let's just imagine they just genuinely don't know what they're good at. Ask other people. Ask people for some strengths-based feedback. Simplest question to ask someone is, what 3 words would you use to describe me at my best? And go and ask quite a few people, because then you'll start to see, is there some similarities in the skills that they are spotting? Or actually, are my strengths showing up very differently with different people? Ideally, for your brand, we need consistency in your strengths. So if 10 different people say different things, that's not brilliant for our development. But I would just start there. What 3 words would you describe me at my best? Is the first one. That will help you to get some insight about your impact. You need to work out whether that is your intent. That is actually what I want to be known for, but that's a slightly different conversation. Second one, I have no idea what skills I should be focusing on. I would go and look at some jobs that you are interested in. It might not feel like the next job for you. It might just be, this is a few possibilities that I'm curious about. Look for the skills that they want in those job descriptions. There's so much data in them. I do this for my role. So I don't want to stagnate in the job that I'm in. So I will often look at LinkedIn, at other job descriptions, and I will look at what skills are they asking for, because that is the way that you future-proof your career. You start to look at those skills and you invest in them now. You don't wait to feel like you're falling behind with them.
And on this point of mobility around an organisation, what has your research shown about that in terms of earning money?
Yeah. It's interesting. So there's not loads of research directly about how does mobility result in more money. There's some that has been done around squiggling at different points in your career, like squiggling earlier on increases your opportunities so that you can specialise later, and specialising later in your career can result in more money. But there's not kind of direct research that I could cite now about mobility drives more money. What we do know is when organisations encourage mobility, it makes people consider staying for longer. What we do know is when organisations make it easier for people to, what we call like try before they apply, they are more likely to consider roles in an organisation. So we did a big piece of research we call the Squiggle and Stay research. We had 15 organisations, 7,000 employees, which were all experimenting with different ways to squiggle and stay, different ways to have mobility in the organisation. And there's some really interesting and simple things that organisations can do. So one of the things that Specsavers trialled was changing an internal job advert, just putting at the top of the job advert, this role is open to career change. They had a 26% uplift in applications where they had made it, they've given people permission to basically apply for a job that they don't do today. So we've not got the pay, but what we do see is much higher consideration when organisations make it easier for people to move across functions, that not get stuck in a silo.
Do you think employers understand that people are more mobile, are likely to change quicker?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think that's why they need to show value to the employee in terms of what do we provide. I mean, I'm talking beyond ping pong tables and those sort of things, but actually we are investing in you. Like we want you to stay, we want you to create an impact. We are going to invest in you and your skills and your learning and your employability, so that they're more likely to stay. But I think what we definitely see is when managers have conversations with people about their career, they are more likely to stay. It's that point I told you about consideration. So there is an assumption, I think, for some managers that if I talk to you about your career, you're going to be more likely to leave because we're going to talk about other things that you would, want to do. But actually, if we talk to people about their possibilities, if we help them to move around a business, they are more likely to stay. Silos and not having career conversations result in talented people who want to take their talents elsewhere. So we need to invest in people, but actually, have lots of career conversations with them.
How do you have that conversation with your company if they're not forthcoming?
As an individual,
yeah, like say you listen to this now and go, oh yeah, okay, I want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But your boss isn't going to do that because they've never done it.
Yeah.
What they do the standard quarterly check-in that's just means nothing.
Yeah.
How do you have that conversation in a meaningful way?
So in an organisation, again, ladder-like career, managers the gateway to your growth. You're pretty stuck if they don't talk to you or they do it once a year. A squiggly career, you need a community. So we do not want to make our development dependent on any one person. Now, sometimes you get a manager who's open and proactive. And, you mentioned someone that you had in sales that was wanted you to do well and they were invested in you. We don't always get that. So we need to invest in a community outside of that individual. So mentors are really important. A mentor, simplest definition, just someone who has done what you would like to do. So they do not have to be more senior than you. They could be someone new to a business. But if they've done what you want to do, you can talk about your career, you can learn through them. Second role, a sponsor. So this is someone who's got access and influence over an area you're interested in. So let's say there's a project or a position or, an event. I think that I would like to work on that. Sponsors are often the people who will advocate for you and make that possibility kind of a reality. But you earn sponsorship. So I couldn't just ask you to say some nice things about me. I need to show up with my strengths. I probably need to help you solve some problems or work on a priority with you so you see me at my best. The third role that I think is really useful is to have somebody who can kind of play the role of a coach for you. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be an actual coach. They tend to be a bit expensive and not available to everybody. So great if you've got one. But if you think about the capability of a coach is somebody who asks questions that make you think and that creates the space. So they'll do a lot of listening and asking questions. You do the thinking. And those people are really useful for you to think through, well, if that didn't work, then what would I do? And who else could I talk to? And those sort of prompts are really useful. So we're always helping people to think, yes, your manager will be able to provide some insight and access to opportunities, but don't make your development dependent on that person. Back to curious career conversations and building your community. That's often how you unlock some of these things that I'm talking about.
What are some practical ways for people to build relationships at work?
So the first thing to do is know that there are different types of relationships will do different things for your development. So there are strong ties. These are quite deep connections. So these are people that you work with quite closely. They know you, they know what you do. So let's say that's you. You're a strong tie. We've worked with each other for a while. I could ask you for your advice. You might make recommendations because you get me. These kind of relationships are really good for support. So if I'm going through a hard time, I'm struggling a bit, I would come to you and I would feel probably more confident as a result of that conversation. We all need a bit of that. Then there are what's called weak ties. These are people that we don't work with very closely and we don't know each other very well, but there tends to be a point of connection. So we've both got a podcast, or maybe we've both worked in sales, or we both went to the same university. There is some point of connection, but it's not particularly strong. These are the opportunities that are most likely to create possibilities for our careers, because these people are working in worlds that we are not in. They can see things that we can't. And these relationships are the ones that are particularly useful for your future possibilities. Now, the fact that I already have a connection, even though it might not be, well, like it's a weak tie, it's not a particularly strong one, it gives me a way in. So I might say, we've both got a podcast. I'd love to have a chat with you about your experience. I've got a couple of questions. And we're more likely to get a yes in that situation because of that connection. The skill really is to have a bit of both. Now, some people say, I know how to get you because I see you, I know what you do. I don't know how to get you. So a couple of ways that you can do it. You can ask for an introduction. So strong ties can make introductions to weak ties. So I might say, I'm thinking thinking about growing my podcast, do you know anybody who I could talk to? And you could be a bit of bridge for me. You can also make a cold connection. So I could go on LinkedIn and write a message to you. Now that's got a lower conversion rate because you might be thinking, I don't know who this person is that's messaging me. So I always recommend if people are going to take that approach, they warm it up first. So maybe I comment on a few of your posts, I might share some of it so that when I do reach out to connect with you, I'm more than just a random name. I'm somebody that is kind of familiar to you. But yet the skill really is to work both of those different types of connections because they do different things for your development.
We'll ask this to everyone around the table, if you like. If you could go back to 25-year-old self and give a piece of career advice, what would it be? Do you want to start with you, T? So you don't steal someone else's.
I was actually going to steal one you already gave. Quit early.
Quit early.
Quit early and move frequently. And get experience as many things as possible in all aspects of life. But experience as much as possible in the work life.
I would have run your own race. By that, I mean, don't try to compete with other people or compare yourself to them. Like, think about what motivates you, what you want to be known for, and let that drive your development.
I'd just say chill out. It takes time to gather experience that's worthwhile. Not many people figure things out in their early 20s, and at 25 you can feel like you should have figured things out. It took me until I was about 30, and then within a few years my whole life changed. And I think, overnight success, 10, 12 years in the making, like that kind of thing. So just relax and enjoy your 20s, because once they're gone, they're gone. Be a mess in your 20s.
I definitely did that.
I wish I could go back and be even messier, even squigglier. Get proper squiffy.
It's never too late to squiggle.
No, that's it. I love the word squiggle. It's great.
It's great, isn't it?
What about then if someone's listening to this now and they feel a bit overwhelmed because they want to be squiggly or whatever, but they don't know where to start? What do you say to them?
I think I would just work through one piece of this at a time, because to your point, like, careers are long, there's a lot going on. If we try and do all this at once, it will feel quite overwhelming. So I think the first thing that I would always say to people is values, which we've talked about. So, really think about what really motivates you when you get up in the morning. What is driving you, and that there's no judgment on what the answer is to that, but you work that out for you, because that should be kind of your compass really for your career. Then I would do that. Then I would think about, what do I actually want to be known for? So what are the talents that I want to stand out? And try then to think about, how do I use them a bit more? How do I stretch them a bit more? Because that will pull possibilities towards you. And then I think that the third thing I would say is about the community. We talked about it a little bit. Conversations and communities. Go beyond the role and relationship you have with your manager on your career. So many people just start and stop there, and they are missing out on learning and opportunities and connections that will create opportunities for their career. But I would start in that order: values, your strengths and talents, and then the career conversations.
Amazing, thank you.
I got a quick question for you. Are your finances in good shape? Is there anything that you might be missing? It can be a difficult question to answer this. So what we've done is we've put together a free financial health check to give you a rough gauge on where you're at, what you can improve and how. There's a link in the description if you want to give it a go.